Yo, what's good? It's your boy, Mr. D, back at it again, here to talk about avoiding definitional and split theses today. Okay, these are two different types of theses that I see a lot in my grading that ultimately create lots of downstream problems for the writer, that if you just nip it in the bud, you're actually going to set yourself up for lots more success. You're going to have a better top-level argument, which will lead to a lot easier commentary and ultimately success on the essay. So let's talk about the definitional thesis first. The definitional thesis contains a CI that thinks it's a causal claim, is phrased as a causal claim, but it's really just a circular definition. It contains itself. So this is something I think you'll understand when you look at some examples. There's really not much more to say about its definition. Let's just take a look at some. So I get this one all the time when I teach Beowulf. In Beowulf, the author argues that bravery leads to heroism. Now, on the surface, if you don't think about it very much, that seems like the kind of CI that is somewhat, adaptable to the standards that are laid out, right? It's got ideas in it. Bravery is an idea. Heroism is an idea. There's a causal claim relationship. But the truth is, if you just look at the definition of heroism, I just Googled it. Do you know what comes up first? Great bravery. So if I just substitute in great bravery like a variable in math, right? I just replace heroism with great bravery because they are fundamentally equivalent. Functionally, what this CI is bravery leads to bravery, which is obviously circular and not proving anything. It's like saying a banana is a banana. You haven't proven anything, that's just a definition. Okay? Another example of this, which might come up in apocalyptic literature, is in Cormac McCarthy's The Road. McCarthy argues that nihilism leads to a lack of meaning. Now, some of you might not know the word nihilism precisely, but the definition is a belief in the lack of meaning. So let's once again do our substitution, and what are we ending up with? Believing in a lack of meaning leads to a lack of meaning. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, not proving anything. One last one. In Isaac Asimov's Foundation, Asimov argues that innovation leads to new ways of understanding. Now, is innovation the exact same thing as new ways of understanding? Well, the definition is a new method or idea. So functionally, if we do our substitution, what we've got is new ideas lead to new understanding. So what I have here is that maybe this is not technically a definition, but it's so obvious that it is not worth a literary analysis paper, okay? I do not want to read a paper that tells me that new ideas lead to new understanding. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's pretty much a definition, even if it's not technically. So basically, to avoid the definition thesis, just think to yourself, am I really saying something that is worth a paper, or am I saying something that is, pretty much exactly a circle? So just something to catch yourself on, and once you figure out that you're not doing it, you're good to go. The split thesis is something which doesn't just involve the pure CI. Here we weren't even talking about subpoints, right? In the split thesis, we kind of need to talk about the CI and subpoints. So a split thesis is a thesis that is three mini CIs that are not tied back to one unified CI. Oftentimes this occurs because the writer has just assumed that the reader can figure out what connects their subpoints and has not explicitly done that. And that's skipping a step, okay? You gotta tell me what unites these three mini CIs, these three subpoints. So let's take a look at one specific example here. So we're talking about the Iliad. So this is a split thesis right here. In the Iliad, Homer argues that uncontrolled rage may lead to short-term success, but also leads to harm to oneself as well as to one's relationships. Okay, there's some good thinking here, there's some ideas, there's some relationships, but when we chart it visually, what do we have? We have rage leads to short-term success. If you want, I can color code this. So we've got rage leads to short-term success. We've also got rage leads to harm to oneself. Okay. We've also got rage harms relationships. But what are these three causal relationships? Because each one's a causal claim. Rage leads to success. Rage leads to harm. Rage leads to harm. What are you trying to prove altogether? What is the ultimate value judgment here? Or what is the ultimate causal claim? The writer might say to themselves, what do you mean, Mr. D? I'm actually doing more work than you're asking me to do. You're asking for one causal claim with three subpoints. I'm giving you three causal claims. Well, That's not really how it works. The point is not to create three causal claims. It's to show that you can prove a central idea and develop it in different directions. So it's about tying everything together. So let's take a look at our fixed example down here, where once we clean stuff up, we get to, in the Iliad, Homer argues that uncontrolled rage is more problematic than beneficial because. So that's a value judgment and a claim of comparison, right? It's saying that something is problematic and more problematic than beneficial. So that's a centralizing claim. And now we can use all of that good work and conceptualization that was in the split thesis. It's totally recyclable. It's all good stuff. We can salvage it, right? We can take that stuff and turn it into subpoints because rage may lead to short-term success, but it also leads to harm to oneself as well as to one's relationships. So it's all about finding what ties these things together. And really, it's often as simple as just a value judgment that ultimately you assumed the reader would get instead of explicitly stating. Maybe this writer thought, well, of course, if rage leads to harm to oneself and to one's relationships, it's not worth the short-term success. But you got to say that. You can't just assume it. So if you get feedback that you have a split thesis, that's an issue, but it's an issue which you can pretty easily solve and salvage lots of the work you've already done.